Shalom, 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 yasha'Allah. It's your boy, Brother Shem Allah, back at you with another quick edifying video. Today's lesson is going to be called Crafty Counsel. Crafty Counsel. Alright, first and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, call Halal Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. That's all praises to the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahawah, and his only begotten Son's name, who you ignorantly call Jesus, whose name is Yahawashi. Alright, and the Holy Spirit, which is the Rawchaa Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who have ruled well through the Spirit, and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days, and has pushed this gospel and this truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom, another mighty shalom, all you Akim out there laboring on the highways and on the hedges and on the unicorn, which is this internet, pushing this 100% doctrine, this 100% truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom to you all as well. Like I said, today's lesson is going to be called The Crafty Counsel. All right, and I came across this article, I believe like late last night, and it's from the USA Today. It says Native Americans rail against Trump's call to change commander's name back. All right, and you see that what's been happening is there's been a lot of, your boy Trump, aka Nero, has been stirring up a lot of stuff against who, right? The so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. All right, which we know to be, right, according to under your father's lineage, right, Israelites, okay? And those of the diaspora who look like these other nations, but your lineage goes back to Jacob, all right? But we've seen, just in the recent, month or so, all right, he's come, hard down on the northern kingdom, right, with ICE and different stuff. Came down on some of the southern kingdom, right, like Levi, right, with that, and now you see also the Native Americans, right? And it's a reason. It's not by coincidence. All right, this is all, this is all for a purpose. Okay, at the end of the day. All right, so I just want to read a little bit of this article and then go over a couple of scriptures. Lord's will is edifying. All right, so it says Native American groups, right, fought for years to get this city's national football team to change its name, right? And our people, even from the Native Americans to the Hispanics to the so-called blacks, they're destroyed for that lack of knowledge. They don't know who they are, okay? And they're sitting here fighting over a byword and a proverb. We're going to get that, in a few too. But let me just keep reading, Salakia. It says Native American groups fought for years to get this city's National Football League team to change its name. It says now President Trump wants to change it back to a moniker many Native Americans consider offensive and disrespectful. No Native American child should have to sit through a pep rally or in a stadium where their culture is being mocked, says Jacqueline De Leon. It says senior staff attorney for the Native American Rights Fund. It says Trump threatened over the weekend to block a deal to build a stadium in Washington, D.C. if the Washington Commanders team refuses to revert to the name it had from 1937 when the team moved from Boston until 2020. It says the Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team, Nero posted on his Truth social site. I may put a restriction on them if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders. It says in a post the same day, Trump said Native Americans would welcome the change. Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen, he wrote in a post that also encouraged the Cleveland Guardians to revert to their former name. It says their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. He says, I may, sorry. It says we are a country of passion and common sense. Owners get it done. Okay. It says, but that's not what USA Today found when reaching out to Native American activists. All right. And it says, Native Americans are not mascots, said Savannah Romero, a member of the enrolled member of Eastern Shoshone Nation, who urged city officials not to yield to the name change. It says we are language keepers, land protectors, survivors of attempted genocide, and a part of a sovereign nation. It says Romero, co-founder and deputy director of the BLIS, or the Black Liberation Indigenous Sovereignty Collective, said in a statement to equate Native people with cartoonish mascots alongside animals is gross and ongoing tactic of dehumanization. It says Trump's move in the wake of efforts across the country to ban the use of Native American mascots and logos in schools, including in New York. It says the Native American Rights Fund supported efforts in New York to ban the use of such mascots. It recently released a video pushing back against the use of Native American mascots. It says, and in June 17 announcement, the Department of Education called the ban an unlawful attempt to ban mascots and logos that celebrate Native American history. It says De Leon said that the challenge is part of a larger narrative by Trump administration to muddy the waters and undermine civil rights protections. It's not racist to push back against racism, she said. It says Native Americans are being used as tools for a distraction, said De Leon. That's very disrespectful to the pain and suffering imposed on Native people by inaccurately depicting our culture. It says Beth Wright, a member of Pueblo of Laguna, said United States has long tried to erase Native identity and culture, including through federal Indian boarding schools, banning Native religious and cultural practices, and seizing control over Native lands. It says Native people are still working to revitalize what the United States tried to erase, said Wright, a staff attorney with the Native American Rights Fund. Native mascots work directly against these efforts by perpetuating false historical narratives about Native people and false depictions of who Native people are today. It says it's a slur. In 2013, the Leadership Conference of Civil and Humane Rights, a coalition of more than 200 groups, approved a resolution calling the owners of the Washington team to change its name. The resolution called for the elimination of names and mascots that promote negative stereotypes and connotation or that trivialize Native American cultures. De Leon, who had lived in Washington, D.C. area for several years, said it hurt when she saw people wearing shirts with the old name. I don't even like to say the word because it's a slur, she said. Right? And ultimately, right, our people, they get caught up in this, right, in these names that Esau has brought to them, okay? Because we know, when we're talking about like the Native Americans, right, Gad and Reuben, right, those are their biblical names, right, the biblical tribes of those people, okay? But our people are so caught up, in that, and they don't understand, okay? And what they don't understand is that, you know, they're under these curses too as well, right? This is how we know the so-called Hispanics and Native Americans, right, are Israelites, right? Just as the Negroes, okay? And we see that because these curses are upon them as well, you know? But you have a lot of bug outs who, you know, got that Negro only type thing and this, that, and the other, right? Because they don't have that understanding. They don't have that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. All right. And one of the curses, right? And when you read the Deuteronomy 28 in verse number 37, it says, "And thou shalt become an astonishment and a proverb and a byword among all nations, whether Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi shall lead thee." Okay. And it's to a point, right, where, you know, in this land of our captivity, right, they've made mascots out of our people. All right. You know, you calling them Redskins, calling them, you know, Indians, right? You see how, you know, even Nero, right? What did he say? You know, this is, you know, my Indian people, they love that, right? You know, he's, you know, just disrespectful just in general, right? Even though that's not even the true biblical names of the Native Americans, okay? It's Gad and Reuben, okay? Those are the Seminole Indians, right? And you know, but that's the thing, right? But and now our people don't understand that they're under these curses and they're under the crafty counsel of the wicked one, all right? And all these other nations, okay? And it was something else that they had said. I'm trying to remember, but I want to get this right. This is Isaiah 1 and verse number 3. All right, because they're saying that they're using these tactics to, you know, to try to hide the identity, and that's true, right? This is Isaiah chapter 1 verse 3. It says, "The ox knoweth his owner, and his ass, and the ass his master's crib." It says, "But Israel doeth not know, my people doeth not consider." All right, and it's to the point now our people don't even consider who they are. All right, so they're fighting for the name, you know, Native American. They're fighting for the name, you know, Redskin and this, that, and the other, right? We know who has the real Redskin, right? The Esau Edom, right? He has that true red skin. All right. But, you know, it's just the whole fact, you know, of our people. Let me get that. But yeah, our people don't consider, right? And why? Because they lack the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Isaiah 4 and 6, it says, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy power. I will also forget thy children." All right. And it says, "As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore, I will change their glory into shame." Right? To the fact that here we are trying to fight to be called Native Americans, to fight to be called, you know, this, that, and the other, and not your true identity. All right, that the Heavenly Father has given. All right, to you know, those are the 12 tribes. Just as you know, Jake from, you know, the Negroes. What did they do? You know, I've been out there teaching, and you tell somebody that they're not black. I had one lady, I remember, you know, it's like it was yesterday, but this was, you know, a few years back when we first started teaching. I remember telling her, you know, "You're not black," and she, you know, then she flipped us off and mooned us and the whole nine. "What do you mean I ain't black? I'm black." You know, and we're just trying to tell her that, hey, you know, black is a color in a crayon box, man. Like, what are we talking about? She didn't want to hear that, right? She wanted to be called black, right? She wanted to be, you know, identified as that. But that's all that, you know, that's through those curses, and that's through that crafty counsel, all right, that they've set up, right? And I want to get that real quick. Let's go to the book of Psalm 83. Matter of fact, I want to get this real quick. Let's go to the book of Sirach 12 and 10. It says, never trust thy enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Right? It says, though he humbled himself, right? And what did they do to Gad? Right? They humbled themselves. All right, amongst them, it says, though he humbled himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou had wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away. Okay, and you understand, man. You know, when your enemy, right? You can't trust them, right? Even though it might seem, you know, they might seem nice, they might seem this, or we're trying to do this to, you know, to promote this. We might be doing this to promote that, right? You got to take heed, man, right? Because ultimately they're trying to continue to erase your identity from you of who you truly are. All right. It says, set him not by thee, lest thou, Salakia, set him not by thee, lest when he have overthrown thee. And what did he do to Gad? Right? Right? He made peace and treaties with Gad, and then he broke them. Right? Gave him blankets with smallpox, did all types of, you know, atrocious things to him. Okay? Who were people who were at peace with him. Right? It said, you know, Gad, a troop shall overcome thee, but thou shalt overcome in the last, right? And they use that craftiness, right? Just like this is about to say. So it says, set him not by thee, lest when he have overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place, right? And what are they doing? They're calling themselves Indians, right? $5 Indians, right? So that they could take advantage of tax breaks and these different things, okay? They're utilizing, they're basically taking over, you know, the identity, right, of Gad, okay? It says, set him not by thee, lest when he have overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. It says, neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. And that's exactly what he did to Gad, right? And Reuben, he took over. He took them over and took over their identity, right? What is that? Let's see. Slovakia. Micah. Let's go to that real quick. So let me read this real quick. It says, set him not by thee, lest when he have overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. Right? Because that's ultimately what he's trying to do. And that's ultimately what he did to Gad and Reuben. All right? You know, he tried to befriend them and do all that stuff, and ultimately he took over. Okay, took over their land, right? Pushed them out to the worst part of the land. Here you can get this little dust area right here. All right, we're gonna take your name. We're gonna say we're the Indians. We're gonna be the $5 Indians, right? They did all that, okay, and basically took your spot. All right, that you were at peace with. Let's go to Micah 2 and verse 2. Right? It says, start at verse 1. Right? It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Right? And the earth was given into the hand of the wicked. And he's using his power to overtake. All right? To overtake, you know, the Israelites. Okay? And basically everybody, all right? It says, and they covet fields and take them by violence. All right. They got that Gatling gun, right? You know, when you know, when Gad wanted to fight back, right? They took out that Gatling gun, right, and let loose, man. It says, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. All right. And that's what they've done, right? They've taken not only, you know, their land, their houses, but he also took their heritage. Okay. And now it's to the point where our people are so destroyed, right? The Israelites, right? And they want to be called by these bywords and these proverbs. Okay. Let's get Psalms 83. That's what I wanted to get. It's the book of Psalm 83, and we'll start at verse number 2. We'll start at verse 1. It says, keep not thou silence, O Most High. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Most High. It says, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Who are the hidden ones? The Israelites. All right. It says, Salakia, it says, they have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. All right. So now it's got you battling back and forth about, you know, a redskin and an Indian and this, that, and the other. And that's not even your true identity. All right. But they've just ran such a smooth one past you, man. You know, and due to the curses and these other things, right, our people fall for the okie doke, man. All right. It says, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. It says, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Okay, so not only Esau, but these other nations too. All right, they all know who you are, right? You're the only one, right? It says the ox knows his owner, the ass his master's crib, but Israel, my people, do not consider. Right? They don't consider who they are. Everybody else knows who you are, but you. All right, because the Lord, you know, gave you amnesia, okay, for a time. And now this is the time where we're starting to wake up and understand who we truly are, okay? So it says, they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, right? The first one, right? Esau, all right? Edom. It says, in the Ishmaelites, right? The Arabs, and Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gebal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria also is joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot. Okay, so these nations, man, they're all, you know, plotting together. But Esau is that top one, right? Who is, you know, meant to deceive, and that's what he's doing. All right, and he's got you out here fighting and protesting, you know, the name, and you know, got you out here all hurt, right, about them calling, you know, redskins and these different things, man, right? But that's not even your true identity, and that's what, you know, it's time to awake out of that sleep, man. Wake up out of that sleep state, understand who you are, okay, and understand that all this stuff is not by coincidence. All, you know, the persecution against the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, that's not just a coincidence, right? Because you don't see it happening to the Asian man. You don't see it happening to, you know, the East Indian man. You don't see it happening to these other nations who are here. It's only specifically targeted, right? Because what? Of that crafty counsel. They have consulted together with one consent, and they are confederate against thee, right? Because what? They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, right? And they're trying to erase that remembrance of who you are, right, out of you. All right, but guess what? Yahawah Bahasham has woke up his people, right? A lot of his people to who they are, okay? And has snapped them out of that amnesia, all right, through Yahawah Bahasham, Yahawashi Bahasham, Qadash, all right? So I just wanted to, I saw this article and I just thought about it, and I just, because, they've been talking a lot about, especially the northern kingdom, the so-called Latin tribes and the different things, right? And then you see Judah, they had Judah caught up for a little bit, or not Judah, the southern kingdom, right? Levi, right? They had them caught up, and now you see the Native American, like it's all the same people, man, right? Because they know who you are, all right? And they're confederate against you. This is why you have to know who your enemy is, man, and move circumspectly and wisely in these times, all right? Because it says your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, looketh at whom he may devour, okay? So be wise out here, all right? So I just want to do this quick lesson. Like I said, Lord's will, this was edifying, right? With that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Call Halal Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash, peace and blessings to the elect of the 12 tribes scattered abroad. A mighty shalom to the 144,000 men. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who have ruled well through the Spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days. Another mighty shalom to the rest of the elect out there, man. Stay diligent, stay focused, keep praying for one another. Understand who your enemy is, right? Keep a watchful eye, and understanding the crafty counsel that they have set up, against you, man. All right. And with that, we say a ball, and shalom.